Hey everybody, my name's Joe.
I'm also Joe.
Welcome back to SNES Life. Recap number 24. 24!
24?
Damn it, 24. First game on the docket tonight. On the ball, November 1st, 1990. These were all November 1st, 1992, thereabouts. On the ball is, for the better lack of a descriptor, it's like a maze.
It's like a marble maze.
It's a marble maze puzzle thing. Yeah.
It's a racing marble maze.
For two players,
a
at
one
least.
player and a two player mode.
Yeah.
I think I personally would enjoy the one player mode just as much as the two player mode, but the two player mode gives a nice sense of
Try to beat the other person.
Competitiveness.
For sure.
Basically, it gives you a timer, and whoever finishes faster wins that round. But if you finish with more points in the end, it doesn't matter how high of a speed you got.
Agreed. So the graphics are pretty solid. The backdrops are nice. The puzzle area is nice. I mean, it all looks pretty decent. The only thing I will say about the looks is the way that the map rotates. If you're prone to motion sickness, I think this could probably trigger that.
Yeah.
Because it is a little disconcerting. Not disconcerting, I think that's the wrong word. Yeah, disorienting to watch the board spin constantly. So, I mean, that's the only thing about the graphics. The music was good. The sound was fine. The gameplay was easy to understand and get. Although I had the habit of turning the thing the wrong way, but you didn't.
It did actually get difficult as well.
Yes, some of the puzzles do actually get hard.
The first two set of levels were pretty easy, and then towards the end of the third set, and there's only 4, it got pretty difficult, and we were barely making the time.
It started putting a lot of things that you run into that are minus 2 seconds, minus 5 seconds. But yeah, would I play a single player? Probably. Would I play a 2-player? For sure. 2-player, I think, adds that competitive edge that it's the same reason we enjoy playing golf games for some stupid reason, because it's fun to try and outdo each other. And I think
golf is just nice and relaxing.
Well, it is relaxing, but so is Super Bowling. So on the ball, two thumbs up, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Sadly, that's the last time you're going to hear that tonight. Next up, Out of This World, the first of 3 cinematic platformers for the Super Nintendo. To my knowledge, there may have been more, but there's only 3 that I know of. You want to talk about this?
Sure. This game was difficult, to say the least. There is a weird... You know what? I'll just start with graphics. Graphics, it was okay, I think. It wasn't the worst I've seen. And they tried something new with the graphics from what we're used to.
For sure. This was emblematic of the 90s, like, MS Paint almost art, polygonal art. Like, they were trying to make it look quasi 3D. And you can tell as your guys are walking there's some depth in their movement. But it is definitely an interesting look. And for the Super Nintendo, it was unique. Now, they made games that looked a lot like this for computers back then, because I remember playing a lot of them. Most of the old point-and-click adventures looked a lot like this.
This reminds me a lot of point-and-click adventures in the way it plays, the style, and just everything about it, really.
Mm-hmm. Sound?
The sound was okay, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, sound I thought was okay. There were some small cutscenes here and there that added to it. The gameplay is okay. Sometimes it was a little hard to control. The real issue with the game is...
if you miss something, you're screwed.
Yes, it is very scripted. If you do not do what it requires you to do, there's not a lot of option in it.
And there are some places that if you miss something, you can't get back to it.
Yep.
So you have to restart, which restarting isn't per se a terrible thing as long as you know what you're doing up to that point. Because, like, we played it one night for, an entire hour, realized we missed something and had to restart the next night. And by 20 minutes, we were already back where we were.
Yes. It is a game where if you know what you're doing, the full playthrough is 30 some odd minutes. It's a very fast game, but you have to learn where you're going and what to do. Was the game particularly awful? No. I did give it a thumbs down just because it does not age well. When you come back to the retro era of the 90s, Super Mario World aged well. It still looks good. It still plays clean. When you compare it to modern day games, you go, obviously it's not the same. And so you don't hold it to that same standard, but it still looks and plays well and sounds great. This game doesn't hold up well in the visuals or the controls. Like, Super Mario World has really tight controls. This game, very less so. There was a little slowdown, not a ton, and it wasn't super detrimental, but it was there. I mean, other than that, it's just...
It just wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
to give it a thumbs up.
I mean, we did play it 2 nights just because we knew that once we figured it out, we could get to the end. Although I will say I gave up, and you were like, "No, we're powering through this because you're right there."
Well, and this is also really the first game of this entire genre on the SNES.
Yes. All the second game's right behind it. So
right.
But
so I felt like it was worth at least playing one of these through.
Yeah, that's fair. And we weren't going to finish this next one. So 2 thumbs down for Out of This World. Next up, the second cinematic platformer for the Super Nintendo, Prince of Persia, which I feel looks a lot better.
I think it looks a lot better. It plays a lot smoother.
Yeah.
There is less lag.
Less lag, less skippiness, less slow down. Your movement's a little floaty. When you're running and you go to stop, your dude skids an extra couple feet.
It does, and you have to be super precise.
Yes.
The jumps are not made to make the jumps unless you are at the very edge of the platform.
Yep, for sure.
The fighting was confusing at first.
I liked the fighting.
I like the fighting. It was confusing at first, but after you get it down, it's pretty easy.
So Out of This World, you did get a laser gun.
You did get
which
a laser
is
gun,
cool.
But it does have charge.
But it also felt almost cheaty. Like you're shooting guys from across the screen. I don't know. Something felt more visceral about having to get into combat and like parry the sword thrusts and then jab in for the attack. It just felt better. It felt more fun that way. Anyway, Prince of Persia is very much a puzzle game.
It's a timed puzzle game as well. You have to beat all of the levels within 2 hours.
I guess puzzle's the wrong word. Maze. It's a maze. It's very much a maze game. The music was pretty solid. The sound effects were all fine. I think this game this was better than Out of This World by far. Like it took whatever Out of This World had and just doubled and trebled it. That said, I still gave it a thumbs down.
I also give this a thumbs down. It suffers from the same thing that Out of This World suffered from, in my opinion. It just wasn't fun.
My biggest issue with this is there are, I think we read 20 levels. And it is essentially 20 levels of the same type of thing. You basically
go through the maze, you find the button to unlock the door, and then you go to the door.
Yeah.
And if you want to even get close to beating the final boss, you are collecting the big health potions.
Yeah, you are.
Because we level skipped to the final boss with all of the potions, and you didn't touch him.
He killed
until like the final battle.
Yeah, it was
where
bad.
You took him down like half of his health, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the end, if you were going to look for a cinematic platformer, we haven't played the third one. It's years away in chronological order, which is called Flashback, Search for Identity. If you're going to play a cinematic platformer, this one would be fine to play.
This would be the one over Out of This World.
Given the experience of 2 of them, this would be the one I would choose. However, I did thumbs down it. I don't know that it's necessarily worth going back and looking for, unless maze games and cinematic platformers are your thing. So, I mean, there you go.
I also gave it a thumbs down.
Next up is Road Riot 4wd Drive. Go for it. You're up.
I'm waiting because I don't even remember how the graphics looked. If I remember correctly, it wasn't good.
No, they weren't good.
I'm trying to...
They were mediocre at best.
Yeah, okay. So, I think the graphics actually were okay, except for the hazards on the road. You can't really tell what they are.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you can't really tell where they are. I guess this also has to do with graphics. While playing, it looked and felt like there were frames that were missing.
Yes, it skipped. There was... I don't know if it's frame skipping or just frames being left out. But it definitely skipped. One of the other visual things that did not help this game is it's such a low to the ground point of view perspective.
You can't really see much in front of you.
Like when you get to a hill, it blocks your line of sight, and you don't see the turn till it's like boop right there.
And you can't overturn on a hill because you will spin out.
Yeah, if you overturn on anything, your car rolls over, which irritating.
Graphically speaking, not terrible, but definitely not great. Sound quality, they had the rooms of cars. You had your little shooting of your gun to slow down the other cars. And that's it. That's all you heard the entire time, other than like the occasional crash of your car. And when you selected a level, your host of the level got a little tune that played.
Yeah, like a little 8 to 10 second clip.
And that was it.
That was your music selection.
Sound was not good.
Yeah.
Gameplay.
So there's your screen selection for your hosts.
Right.
They are very caricaturized, stereotype, horribly racist, classist, whatever you want to call them. I'm not sure. They're bad. The game was billed as a combat car race game. And in so much as you do have a gun, I guess, all it does is slow the other vehicles down for half a second so you can get in front of them.
I will say, with gameplay, big down, single player, it is still split screen.
Yep, it suffered from the same thing Mario Kart
did. Fortunately, it does have a mini-map.
It does,
which is an up from Cyberspin.
Yeah, it is. They knew that. They figured that much out at least.
I think the HUD actually isn't that bad.
Yeah, no, the HUD's fine. It just isn't... The HUD wasn't necessary,
Continuing with gameplay, the turning is incremental. So when you turn a little bit, and then you hit it again, you turn a little bit more, and then you hit it again, you turn a little bit more. And so it's like a clock, and it's not overly difficult to get the hang of it, but it is a bit confusing at first.
Yeah.
And then you do have to be very careful about turning on hills because you will fall over very easily.
Yeah. It does give you a good feeling of moving quickly, though. I'll give it that. It felt fast.
The tracks are also really short.
The tracks were super short, yeah. Which made it... So here's the thing. I gave it a thumbs down. Because if I wanted to play a racing game, particularly one from this point of view, I would play Top Gear. If I wanted to play a car combat game that's also from this point of view, I would play Mario Kart. Because both of those games looked better, sounded better, played better. Like, this game just wasn't up to par with things we've played already.
I agree with that.
So I did give it a thumbs down. Comparative to, like I said, Top Gear and Mario Kart, it's not worth it.
I also gave this a thumbs down.
Sorry. Final up is Road Runner and Coyote Death Valley Rally. This is a platformer. I mean, it is a platformer. But it's also kind of a racy-ish game.
It's like Sonic.
Yeah.
It's basically a Sonic ripoff with the Road Runner characters.
That's fair. Visually speaking, the game looks great.
Yeah, I think the game looks amazing. They very well captured what they were going for.
Oh, yes.
It's very Looney Tune-esque, and I think cartoon characters pair into games very well.
Yes, they look great. The theme is spot on. The character models look awesome. The backgrounds are very pretty. All of the in-game stuff looks awesome. Perfect on the looks. Sound. It had music. The music was okay.
I think the sound was okay. I think it repeated.
It did.
Which is, disappointing,
so
but not the worst.
There were like 3 acts per area. Or 4, something weird like that.
It was like 4 acts, 5 areas.
Yeah. So the desert had its own song, but then we get to the next area eventually, which is like a construction zone, and it did have a different music. The sound effects otherwise were fine. My favorite part is that they added to the buttons, your shoulder buttons, did the Road Runner's noises where he's like, honk, honk, and then the blah, 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 which has nothing to do in the game. It is just there for people to be like, I can make him go honk honk and blah, 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 blah.
To be fair, the only buttons needed in the game are your movement buttons, left, right, the jump button, and your peck. And that's it. That's all you really use.
The turbo, so you could run up walls.
Turbo. I forgot the turbo existed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the sound was fine. And then you get to gameplay, and that's where the game has some issues. So, it is a platformer. You're running, you're making jumps, you're avoiding and or killing enemies. So let's start at the beginning there. You're running. This is Sonic. This is Emerald Hill Zone. Sonic is perfect level design for go super fast as you can, on a linear track, get to the end as quickly as possible. And then with Sonic the Hedgehog, the second zone, which is like Mystic Ruins or something, it completely says, no longer must you go fast, because everything here will kill you. Roadrunner is like the quintessential fast character in a game where you have to constantly stop
and make precise jumps.
You have to go backwards, forwards, up, left, right, and it's just like it punishes you for going fast, especially when you start climbing hills, because if you fall off the inside, you have to run all the way to the right side of the map to start going back up again.
And it really doesn't help that when you stop running, you skid.
Yep.
It's very floaty controls as well. You jump super far.
Which, I guess he is a bird. And Roadrunners are flightless, right? But, like, I guess, like a chicken, you could probably throw your wings out and jump and float. I don't know. I'm trying to justify it. It's not going to work. The point is, you can't actually go fast. Because it'll...
There is also these flags, which are checkpoints for your 2 lives that you have.
You do get a bunch of points if you find them, and you do earn extra lives. So they are worth finding, but there's like 20 on each level.
There's a ton on each level.
And we find like
running through like the basic area, or like the basic, zone in which you're supposed to progress through the level, you see like 5.
Yeah, it's bad. You have to really hunt to find them. The other gameplay issue is things that hurt you. So there are randomly just like cactuses in the middle of the road that if you hit them, they hurt you and you stop. Like, you don't continue running through them. You have to jump over them.
I think...
And if you're moving fast, guess what? You're not going to have time to jump over that thing unless you know it's coming.
I think having the cactus hurt you is fine. Like, that makes sense to me, but if you get damaged at all, you are stopping.
Yes, 100%. It stops you on a dime. The enemies, you can kill them by pecking, or by, like Joey said, when you're running, if you push the other direction, you, like, skid to a stop. Well, if you skid, your, like, little claws come up. But, I mean, you're right on top of them by the time you hit them. And the pecking is the same thing. You have to get right on top of them. And if the enemy moves, it's going to hit you. So your attack range is very, very low. And it makes it very, very difficult. You get 6 hits before you die. You start the game with 2 lives, but your 0, I think, counts life. So 3, really. It's just not a great platform. The level design, I think, is what kills it. Had it been a more linear track like Emerald Hills from Sonic the Hedgehog, had they designed for you to go fast pretty much all the time, it would have made sense and probably been a lot more fun. I actually wonder why on earth this isn't a racing game. Like, this should have been a racing game to me.
You did point that out, that like a Looney Tunes racing game would be great, and you could just have Roadrunner running.
Yeah. Like, if you had turned this into a Mario Kart clone of some kind and just had all these characters from the Looney Tunes world, like, driving race cars, and then the Roadrunner was just on foot. Like,
and that
sounds great.
That does remind me of there is a Sonic racing game where the Hedgehog characters are all on foot. And the characters that don't run fast have cars.
Right.
Or go-karts.
It just makes sense.
So, it's just not well designed.
Yeah, the level design is poor. Otherwise, the game looks and sounds great. Is it worth playing? I mean, if you like to be frustrated, sure, go for it. If you're a big fan of Looney Tunes, you'll probably wouldn't mind playing it. Do I think you're going to play it and enjoy it? Probably not.
It's just not that great.
Yeah, it's just not doesn't control well enough to make you happy in the end. It frustrates the piss out of you, is what it does. So I gave it a thumbs down.
I gave it a thumbs down.
Jesus, more thumbs down. That is, On the Ball was literally the only game we had this week that was 2 thumbs up. Everything else was thumbs down, which sucks. But we are bound to run into bad weeks. It's going to happen. So that's it for the 24th week of recaps, everybody. Thanks for watching. Join us for week 25 as we get moving along. We're up to whatever, I don't know, 100 and God, what are we up to? 125 games, I think now, something like that. We're getting up there. It's just so many games, and we still have hundreds to go.
There's 705. It was 715.
Somewhere in there, but that's it. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one.
See you guys.